For this Careers Now webinar. Oh, I think it just started. Let me try that again. Greetings and good morning. Thank you for joining us for this Careers Now webinar on Halloween. We have a fabulous show for you today. We're going to share some insights with a fabulous panel of three excellent ladies who can give you information on accessible opportunities and success stories with respect to working in food and beverage manufacturing. And we're also going to show you some of the resources that are available for job seekers through the Careers Now job seeker profile, which of course is free for all job seekers to sign up and access. But before we do any of that, I just want to share a few housekeeping items. And they're quite simple. You'll only see the cameras of the panelists and myself. And if you want to ask questions or make comments, there is a comments comments location for you to do so. We'll see your questions there. So if we have an opportunity at the end, we'll be glad to address any questions or comments that you may have. And I think that's pretty much it for the housekeeping. So we can get started. Okay, hold on. My voice is something. All right, better. No more ghost of Christmas past. I'll be the ghost of Christmas present, so we can speak properly. To begin with, I would like to introduce our panelists. My name is Donald Goosey Sala, as I said, also known as the ghost of Christmas present. I am the leader for the engagement of job seekers with disabilities for the Careers Now program. And of course, the Careers Now program is designed to support and provide resources to job seekers with respect to helping them prepare for, explore, and find work in the food and beverage manufacturing industry. And our excellent panelists are, in no particular order, Morgan McPhail, who is the HR manager for Denningers. We also have Gwen Sitzker, who's the Director of Food Safety and Quality for Embassy Ingredients. With Gwen is her colleague Priya Bola, the Senior People and Development Specialist for Embassy Ingredients. And last but not least, Kristen Weiss, the Day Supports Manager, Career Connections at Community Living Mississauga. So, all that having been said, I'd like to dive right into the panel to hopefully get through all the questions we have. So these three insightful characters can share all their knowledge with you. And we're going to begin with Gwen. I was hoping, just for our audience, because of course we don't know what anyone's background is, if you could please give us a brief explanation of what food and beverage manufacturing is, and maybe some quick examples of typical workplaces.
Okay, amazing. So I think right now, when we're seeing a lot of AI even coming in with the food industry, food and beverage manufacturing is never going to go away. It's always going to be a job for people, I think. And it is what it is. We feed people, we make ingredients, we make finished products, and we keep them safe for the world to succeed. So within food and beverage manufacturing, there's a lot of different areas, from, people and development teams, sales teams, R&D teams, production teams is huge, and what I oversee at Embassy, which is our quality department. So we're talking everything food safety, QC lab technicians who do testing of the products, and regulatory. So making sure all of the food is safe and meeting the laws in Canada or the country it's being sold in.
Thank you. And just to draw that out a little bit and make sure that I've got it, QC, you're referring to quality control, correct?
Quality control, that's right.
Yeah, very, very important. Well, thank you for that overview. And I think I think it's great to highlight that even with the advance of AI, we're always going to need humans to do this work. So, a very appealing field in that regard. And just following up on that, I wanted to toss the baton over to Morgan, because Denningers also operates storefronts. And since that's a little bit different, I thought, Morgan, maybe you could share just a little bit of information about what those workplaces look like.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's unique about us is we're a food manufacturer. So we're a meat processor as well as a retail store. So we're a specialty food store. So we make our own products. We sell them in our own stores, as well as import products from across Europe and local products as well to sell to our customers. So we're based out of Hamilton. We have 3 stores in Hamilton, 1 in Burlington, and our specialty food stores are focused on customer service. So this is production of food, selling of food. We have demonstrators who do sampling. It's really engaging with customers at our store, which is very opposite of what our manufacturing plants look like. Our plants do all of the work behind the scenes to get those great products to our customers at our stores.
Great, thank you. So now that everyone in the audience is an expert, obviously, on what food and beverage manufacturing workplaces look like, there will be a test at the end, so everybody be ready. I'm kidding, there won't be a test. Kristen, I'd like to provide some sort of tangible information for the job seekers or other service providers supporting job seekers in the audience about what it might look like when job seekers with disabilities have been successfully supported to be employed in the manufacturing sector. And Community Living Mississauga has done just that. You've supported job seekers with developmental disabilities to be successfully employed in adjacent manufacturing sectors. So could you share some, just some of the insights and high-level overview of what the job seekers were doing in those environments and what all that looked like?
Yeah, absolutely. So in approximately late 2021, we started working with a manufacturer of industrial strength kitchen equipment. So things like stoves, ovens, fridges that were being used in places like restaurants and other larger production in the food industry. With that company, we were able to successfully onboard 3 job seekers working there, and they are working in the capacity of an assembler role. So that role includes assembling the components of the industrial size stoves and ovens, and they do that by reading schematics to be able to assemble the different components on like an assembly line using the device of a tablet. So that actual business already had kind of, I would call like accommodations built in to be able to use different types of devices to learn the different pieces to that role. So each person on the line would read what their role on the assembly line is through using the tablet and deciphering the different schematics to assemble their pieces and then kind of move it along to the next person on the line. So we've to date had people working there for the past, I guess it's been just over 3 years, very successful with that business.
All right, thank you. That's excellent information, and I think it's really important for everybody in the audience to understand that this is a field, manufacturing and food and beverage manufacturing, specifically where people with disabilities are employed. They're actively employed. They're being supported by organizations like Community Living Mississauga, and of course we have employers like Denninger and Embassy that have made efforts to have accessible and inclusive workplaces, whether they're working with an employment service provider or not. And we're going to dig into what that looks like on both sides of the equation. So to do just that, I'm going to go back to Gwyn. And Gwyn, Embassy has made intentional efforts to accommodate its employees and support their success. So could you provide some examples of accommodations that have been made?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, when you're talking about someone with a disability, so, a person where something is affecting either their body, their mind, or something about them that they have a limitation. I want to be very clear. It doesn't mean the person is limited. I mean, we have different needs that have to be met. And what I can say is some employers, in my experience, don't necessarily put all of the attention to supporting their employees that have needs. But then there are other companies that do such an amazing job within their people and development departments, looking at PRIA there, to really support their people. So for example, with Embassy Ingredients, one of the really key areas that I'm responsible for is hiring people for our quality team and building up a really great quality team. So one thing that I always look for is, number one, in any role you're going to look at, you need to be able to do the job. So, if you have a disability, you might have limitations, and you should respect yourself and your body for that. So, for example, someone who might have like a physical limitation might not necessarily be working in our production line. That on our dry side, we have two different sides to our business, our dry side and liquid side. Dry side, you're lugging 20 kg bags every day. On our liquid side, the demand is a little different. It's a different job. So really knowing what your needs are. So I'm very happy kind of to talk from the employer point of view, but I'm also really happy to talk from maybe the person with the disabilities point of view. So really, I'm okay and I'm happy to share. I do have a medical disability, and it is something that has affected me my whole life. It's also made me what I'm really good at, and it's also caused a lot of limitations in my career. So I am the director of food safety and quality, and food safety is so important to me. When I was 18, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, so inflammatory bowel disease. And they kind of describe it as you have food poisoning every single day of your life. So if I could go into quality and prevent other people from getting food poisoning, oh my gosh. Number one, now I'm passionate. So everyone with a disability, run towards whatever you're passionate about, and the world will accommodate you in one way or shape or form. But I haven't had that experience my whole career. I have had jobs where I have been let go and fired because I was taking too much time off, too many doctor's appointments. I've had times where all of my vacation was spent in the emergency room, which is absolutely terrible. But then, and I never grew in those positions in those companies. But then you meet companies like Embassy Ingredients, who has really advanced HR departments and really great HR departments, like Priya over there, like helping us in HR. I started here 9 years ago as a food safety specialist, and I have made my way to the director level with full support. So for anyone with a disability, employers will be there to support and look out for you. It's going to mean something different for everyone, though. For me, it means I need some extra times off to see my doctor and make sure I'm in preventative maintenance mode and I'm keeping on top of it. For me, it means when I'm testing in the lab, I might not eat gluten. I might get my QC technicians to do that for you, but you can definitely be successful. And a lot of it is the support the companies give you. So I really take that into mind now when I'm hiring other people, because a disability might be seen as a limitation, but you can also roll with it and make it the most successful thing and make it part of you. It will always be part of you, but you can totally succeed. And it feels so good, because when you feel like you can't work and you feel like you're not able to do it, just know you can. And there's a lot of companies that will support you through it.
Thank you very much, Gwen. I really appreciate your willingness to share a bit of your personal experience. I think that, again, that will be really meaningful for the people in the audience, whether they are job seekers with disabilities themselves or whether they're supporting people with disabilities. I also think it's important that you highlighted sort of both sides of the experience, right? That sometimes you find yourself in a situation with an employer that really doesn't understand, and that may not be a good fit, but that you will also find yourself in positions where you have an employer that not only does understand, but wants to support you to succeed, and it ends up being a really good fit and a really good match for everyone. So it's just a matter of finding those opportunities and making the most of them. And you mentioned Priya a couple of times, which I think is very timely. Because Priya, you're going to get the next question. Gwen sort of alluded to some of this, so I'd like you to clarify it and provide some details. But how does Embassy approach the issue of accommodations and accessibility from a people and culture perspective?
Yeah, it's a really great question. And if I can tag on to what Gwen had said a little bit earlier about the individual themselves respecting themselves, whether it's an accommodation or any kind of disability that they have, the same goes for the employer, essentially. So in terms of the approach that people in development have at Embassy Ingredients is respecting the individual first and foremost. And obviously, when it comes to communication of any kind of accommodation, whether it would limit them in a certain way or not limit them, it's important to hear them and understand what it is for that kind of accommodation. And I think just with the respect and open communication, that understanding of an individual is really important. And I think when it comes to human resources, really being the first department and area of the company that a candidate really sees, it is that much more important that the individuals that are in human resources are as respectful and understanding and really wanting to hear and making sure to hear out the individual who is applying for the roles. So yeah, that's what I would say is Embassy Ingredients approach.
Well, I think we can understand why Gwyn heaped so much praise on you and Embassy's HR department. I'm sure we'd all love for HR departments to have that approach, have that perspective, understanding the individual and being responsive to what their needs are. That's obviously, it's working for Embassy. It ends up being more productive for everyone because you have more productivity in the workplace, right? If you're accommodating someone so that they can be as productive as possible in the workplace, it's going to be better for the employer. So fortunately, there are, we have another employer on this panel, Denninger's, that has also some great practices. And so I love that we've got two employers that can share sort of what they do to make this successful. So Morgan, with regards to Denninger's, I mean, I've done work with Denninger's for a number of years. You've got a history of specifically recruiting job seekers with disabilities through employment service providers who support them. So I'd love for you to describe some of what those relationships look like and why you turned that into part of Denninger's regular recruitment process.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to intentionally hiring people with disabilities, there has to be an effort put in to target that talent pool. So when you're posting on Indeed or using regular job boards, you're not necessarily meeting or reaching out to people with disabilities who may not be using those regular tools to search for jobs. So working with employment partners throughout the community really does help put intention behind inclusive hiring to make sure that you're putting your jobs out to people with disabilities who are also looking for jobs that you may not hit by just posting on Indeed. So reaching out to employment partners who are working with those individuals to match them up to a job that meets their skills. So the employment partners are already assessing the individual. What are their skills? What environment would they be successful in? And they're helping match to you as an employer where they think they would be the most successful. So they've already gone through an initial screen to say, hey, I think this person would be a great fit for you. The employment partners that we've built relationships with as well are absolutely amazing at coming out, understanding what the environment looks like, looking at the jobs, taking the time to understand what's required of that person on a daily basis to make sure that when they're presenting someone to you, it's a match for what the skills you require are to set that person up for success. So that person is already setting up for success right off the bat because they've had an individual go out for them and make sure that they're appropriately matching them based off of their skills.
Well, and I think you've got a very well developed, process. I think it's really important, especially the targeted and intentional piece that you mentioned. And I'm going to stick with you because I know you've got more information to share. We've heard a bit from Denninger's. Denninger's. Sorry, we're going to hear more from Denninger's. We've heard a bit from Embassy with regards to accommodations and that sort of thing. So in keeping with everything that you just mentioned that Denninger's has done and is doing, can you share some examples of the accommodations that have been made or some success stories, just to give our attendees a sense of how roles can be made more accessible, right? Make it a little more tangible.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the benefits of working with the job partners in the community is that there is a lot of funding behind those programs to help the individuals coming into work be successful. So for example, they may come for their first week or two with a job coach. That job coach is there to make sure that what's being communicated as expectations or training is being received by that person and understood in the way that they need it to be understood. So the resources provided by the employment partners in the community are extremely beneficial for companies who may not have the initial resources to put in immediately. It is funded through those partners, and they are there to fully support to ensure proper onboarding and make sure that person is set up for success in their first few months of employment. and they do stay connected with them throughout, I believe it's usually up to 6 months afterwards, to make sure that that employment is still going well, and they help to step in as needed. So we've had candidates come into interviews with a job coach who will help make sure that they're understanding the interview questions, help guide them through the questions themselves. They provide coaching beforehand to make sure they're set up for the interview. We've had a few other accommodations. So for example, somebody who was sensitive to noise. So they found that the background noise was very distracting for them in the workplace. So we got them noise canceling headphones. They can still hear people talking to them. They can still hear any alarms or any safety notifications behind them, but it just cancels out the background noise because they found that distracting for them and impacting their ability to work. So something as simple as providing those noise canceling headphones was able to help somebody stay focused and better their learning in the workplace. Another example, Donald, do you have a question?
No.
Another example would be somebody who's struggles with multitasking. So in a day, they may have multiple jobs to do. So something as simple as providing a list with a timeline of from 10 to 11 a.m., you're going to focus on doing this task. At 11 a.m., you're going to finish that up. You're going to move on to the next task. So being able to provide them clear instructions of what's expected for them to structure their day and make sure they understand what they're going to be doing throughout the day really does help people succeed.
Yeah, sorry for opening my mouth. I'm engaged by what you're saying, and I for a moment I thought you were finishing, but I'm glad I waited. So yeah, I appreciate the information, in particular, talking about the way the service providers can not only support you, but the way, how you've engaged with them to actually access those services. I think that's really important. Obviously, not every job seeker with a disability is going to be supported by a service provider, but when individuals are supported by employment service providers, there are a number of resources that are available to the employers, and it's important, obviously, that they are accessed in order to ensure successful employment outcomes.
Yeah, and I actually want to jump in if that's okay. I think one thing you said was so critical and so important, and this is something every single manager out there can do. You said, you had if someone has a challenge with multitasking, you help a task list, and you put a task list and you help guide them and give them that support. So as I mentioned, with quality, I work with a lot of different individuals, and I think coaching is such a big thing every manager can do. I've worked with a few individuals with ADHD in the past, and they were all over the place, and it was really having that negative performance. And I did something very similar. I helped them with structure on a weekly basis. We checked in, we talked about it, we worked with that, and the amount of success you can get. So I love that you're starting that as a service provider, and I would encourage every single manager out there to take that on, because that's your role, coaching your team, and you can make the world of a difference for someone. So I love that so much.
I see Kristen shaking her head, nodding. Obviously, she agrees, and that's good, because Kristen, I'm going to be asking you to give us a very concrete example, and this is it's going to bring us back to food and beverage manufacturing. Kristen, Community Living Mississauga partnered with DSV Logistics to integrate job seekers with disabilities into their workforce in a pretty substantial way. Now, DSV is not a food and beverage manufacturer. They are in the manufacturing sector. It's a different part of it, and Kristen can explain that. But what did that partnership look like, right? How did you manage that with DSV? And to bring us back to, the field we're talking about, how can that kind of relationship be extrapolated to or applied to food and beverage manufacturers?
Sorry, Mike was being testy there. Yeah, absolutely. I can talk about, I would say for us, DSV was probably one of our biggest partnerships. It is a rather large manufacturing warehouse. facility, specifically their products being beauty products. So definitely some similarities for sure in terms of with some pieces around, quality and assurance and such. But in 2021, Career Connection had started its partnership with DSB to support with a diversity and inclusion initiative that they had to onboard more diverse employees. And they were specifically at that time looking at the disability sector in terms of doing some hiring. So we had gone in at that time and done some of those things that that were mentioned here already around kind of understanding the workplace and what the needs were and how things operated and all the ins and outs and the nuances of their operations. As well, we had provided to their leadership team diversity and inclusion training. So we had done training with all of their leadership team as the start to that partnership. But we also recognize that in order for them to be successful with their D&I initiative, that we needed to partner with other disability-focused service providers so that we could ensure that all job seekers in the disability sector were being represented. As Donald mentioned earlier, Career Connection and Community Living Mississauga is very specific to the developmental sector or intellectual disabilities. So we had started our connection with the Ontario Chamber of Commerce and the Discoverability Network to really represent job seekers of all disabilities. So through Career Connection, we had started with 3 different candidates that we had pre-screened and had looked at being a good fit for the DSB workplace in 2021. And since then, DSB, through the support of Career Connection, has onboarded 23 candidates to work in their warehouse setting in a variety of roles. The support that we had provided to DSB was providing them those work-ready candidates. So doing all of that pre-screening in-house and preparing people, supporting with the interview process and on-site job coaching to help people acclimate to the role, learn the new role, as well as providing, as was mentioned before, those ongoing supports that are what we would call retention supports. So we provide all of these to employers at no cost and continue to maintain those relationships even beyond the retention period to ensure that it is still successful for the business as well as the people that we are supporting there. Honestly, I don't really see when it comes to inclusive hiring what the difference would be from logistics services to assembly and manufacturing to food services. When we're looking at hiring from that untapped labor pool, ultimately what it gives is businesses the ability to address any labor shortages they might have, as well as providing those benefits to their company, like around retention rates, increased profit margins, and just overall a workplace morale that can see that people with all types of abilities are being represented in their workplace. Honestly, I think it's a win-win for any business to really look at hiring inclusively. I think for anyone that wants to kind of get that start like DSB did, I think the best thing would be is to kind of make those connections with a reputable employment service provider, see how they can kind of support your team with, any training that might be helpful around diversity and inclusion, and also just kind of exploring, where in your business you can see that need might be, where that good fit might be, and a good employment service provider will help you kind of meet those needs, meet those demands, and then support with the process from start to finish.
I think that's some excellent and very important points there. In particular, the training for the individuals from the employer that are going to be responsible for moving this kind of thing forward right off the top. We have 2 rather sophisticated employers here who have the internal expertise, right? They've been through whether those processes or something else in order to get to where they are today. But for businesses that maybe manufacturers that maybe haven't gotten there yet, starting off that way and having the supports from an organization like Community Living Mississauga is obviously going to be incredibly valuable in helping them to be successful. And I think the important thing to remember is they don't have to do it on their own, right? There are these services available at no cost to them. So thank you for just highlighting what that looks like. And I want to sort of move into some questions here, getting towards the end of at least the panel question part, that are looking at providing maybe some advice, some guidance for the job seekers that are in the audience or the service providers supporting them. So Morgan, I'm going to return to you, and just generally speaking, what advice would you give to job seekers with disabilities or neurodivergent individuals who are interested in working in food and beverage manufacturing?
I would say do your research into the company that you're wanting to apply to. Food and beverage, well, it's an industry as a whole. There's a lot of different companies within. If you look at Embassy and you look at Denninger's, the environment that you would work in is extremely different. We're a meat manufacturer, so we're cold, damp, cooler. We're regulated for temperature. The environment is going to be significantly different than if you go to somewhere that's a bakery or a candy packaging company. The environments all change, and it depends on what company you're going to. So find out what company you're going to. Does that company match you as well? Do you align with their values? Does the company represent what you represent as well? And then from there, match the job with your skills. So you can look at what they're available, what are your skills, and what do you think you would be most successful in, and then apply to something that matches that to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success. So one, understand the company that you're applying to. Look at the environment that company has, and make sure you're matching up your skills.
That is great advice. Absolutely see the value in knowing what you're applying to and making sure that the workplace is a good fit for what you want to do. It also connects with sort of where I'm going with these questions, because with respect to trying to pick workplaces to apply to that match your skill set or what you're comfortable with, and knowing what you're getting yourself into. Right, one of the things that we want to encourage job seekers to do is get registered with CareersNOW. Create a free job seeker profile and start accessing some of the resources that are there to support you with exploring and preparing for work in the food and beverage manufacturing sector. And some of those resources are related to job searching, right, the job board and things like that. But some of the resources are specifically related to preparing for work in the sector, right? You talked about knowing what the employer does. You also need to know what the industry is like, what kind of skills or experience do you have related to the industry that is going to be relevant. And there's a number of free trainings through the CareersNOW job seeker accounts that are available to give people exposure to and specific skills and education related to food and beverage manufacturing, so they have a better sense of what to expect in the workplace. Some of these trainings are things like sanitation level 1, good manufacturing processes, lockout, tagout, and so on and so forth. And it's okay if you don't know what some of those are. I don't know what lockout, tagout is. I've not worked in manufacturing. I know what sanitation is. I know what good manufacturing practices are. But there are a bunch of them on there, and they'll give you digital credentials that are industry recognized, created in partnership with Food Processing Skills Canada. And so in a very long-winded way, I'm getting to my next question, which is for Priya. But as I've just mentioned, CareersNOW provides job seekers with free access to these industry-specific trainings that can help them prepare for work in the field and get a better understanding of what food and beverage manufacturing looks like and what they'd be doing. How valuable is it for you as an employer, as a people and culture department, to see credentials like those on a candidate's resume that are specifically related to food and beverage manufacturing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think first and foremost, it's always great to have those kinds of credentials in a sense where you're really showing yourself understanding those fundamental compliance standards, those safety standards. And it also demonstrates industry readiness as well. Really just trying to be prepared in terms of the specific area of food manufacturing that you're going into. So when I personally see those kinds of things on resumes, it really shows job readiness. You're taking initiative, especially because they're free and accessible on CareersNOW. It's something where you're going to kind of stand out from a candidate pool from my perspective, and when I'm seeing that on a resume. So yes, it shows your commitment, it shows your wanting and your needing to learn. Even for someone that's never been part of that kind of industry before, maybe they've been part of a specific role that's same across maybe different industries, but then you're going into a different kind of product or service. So it just shows that readiness to learn and wanting to understand. So it's always a great thing to have.
Well, and I mean, I'm inclined to agree. I think the more you're prepared for a position, it obviously looks better. It helps you out. Continuing with that theme, right, I do have one more question. It was just going to be for Kristen, but we've done pretty well with time. And there aren't a huge number of questions in the chat that we need to respond to. So I think we've got time for me to expand this question a little bit. So Gwyn, just be prepared. I'm going to get Kristen to answer first, but I'm just going to ask you for a bit of your insights as well. But generally speaking, right, so Kristen, from your perspective, if job seekers have a baseline understanding of an industry like food and beverage manufacturing through these kinds of sector-specific trainings, right, how would it contribute to more efficient supports? And Gwyn, just so you know, sort of the iteration of that question that I want to get some insight from you on is, from the perspective of someone who's working in food and beverage manufacturing, just how valuable is it for you when you've gone into jobs that you've had that kind of background? How has it helped you with integrating into a workplace or settling into a role? But Kristen, we'll start with you.
So I'm going to kind of answer this from like two perspectives, and I believe Morgan had mentioned this a bit too, because we see it generally speaking working with job seekers that something can appear one way, and then you get in that environment and you realize that it's something totally different. So understanding even just those, like, you were mentioning about Denninger's, it's cold. We're dealing with meat. Like you're going to be dealing with a different level of temperature. So the more people understand industry and an environment, I think the better it's going to prepare them mentally, right, for what that workplace may be like. We as an employment service provider try to do that as well, right? We will go in and do those tours so we can understand everything. How much noise is there? What does that look like? Is there things that could cause distractions or temperature changes or what have you, so that we can tell the job seekers that. So if they start doing some of that as well, right, that's their own kind of understanding and research. When we talk about the pieces around, getting some certification or training, the way that could benefit us from a job coaching perspective is when we're going out to support someone, we are learning the job alongside the person, right? We will never claim to be, a professional in that industry, because our role is to help people find work, right? So we learn alongside the person that has obtained that employment, which, can be, it can be interesting at times, but it also means that while the person's learning the role, then we're learning the role, then we're implementing our supports at that point in time. The person has a baseline understanding, we can kind of jump ahead to how we can best support them versus us just learning the role while they're learning the role. We can implement some of the other supports that we provide around how the person learns best. Do we see a need for a minor accommodation that we can kind of create on our end, like mentioned, those, task lists, other pieces like that, right? So if we're spending more of our time doing, those other pieces to what we specialize in terms of from a job coaching perspective versus also learning the role from scratch with no prior understanding to it, it can make the process go a bit longer, right? So we can really hone in on how that person is going to be most successful in the job when they have that kind of baseline going into it and that general understanding and or certifications and specific things. And I think generally speaking, that's going to allow for someone to be a more successful candidate or employee in that industry.
I think that's a really important point around the accelerated learning. If people already have a baseline understanding in the field, and how it allows you to really support a little more effectively, because you're not having to necessarily learn the role from scratch in order to help them learn the role from scratch. That's a very good point. So thank you for highlighting that. And Gwen, I hope I've given you enough time to think about think about that. If you're willing to share your thoughts, I'm sure everyone would appreciate it.
Yeah, I think it's really, really interesting. And I think, when you have a disability, the world is against you a bit, and not really against you. You just got a few more challenges in order to succeed, but definitely it is possible. So I think one thing that reflects is we use the word job a lot. And I don't have a job and I hate jobs, because a job, you go and you work 9 to 5 and you have to do it. And you have to do it because you're getting something for it. And, when you have a disability, you're already dealing with additional things in life, additional challenges. And then to have a job on top of that, that's awful. I'm a fan of careers, and at Embassy, I don't have a job, I have a career, and it's hard for me to stop at the end of the day. I go home sometimes and I just don't want to stop, because I love what I've been doing all day. And I think that's really important. And it goes to understanding what you're getting yourself into, and then it's going to grow from there. So we talked about industries like the meat industry. Like if you're going into food, do you want to go into the meat industry, or do you want to go into the baking industry? I make cakes for a living, and it's great. And it's kind of ironic because I have Crohn's disease and I can't eat them, but that's okay. It's a very bit of a different story, but I'm also passionate about food safety, right? Use your passions, turn it around. So for me, I have this disease that has been horrible in my life and has caused hospitalization after hospitalization, challenge after challenge. But it's also given me so much passion to prevent people from getting sick, that when people look at me and say, wow, this is what's really great about you. Holy, we have this director of food safety and quality. She's the most passionate person you can imagine. That's all being derived from my disease and understanding what I'm getting into. But have I navigated the field? I haven't just jumped into it and said, good to go. For me, I don't work in the meat industry because it is cold and it is wet, and it's not a great industry for me. For me, I don't work night shift because sleep is critical for me. So it's very important that I have my limitations and my hard, I have to do this, because if I work night shift, I'd probably be making myself a lot sicker. So finding what works for you, and that training, that understanding really can give you an advantage to know that, hey, wow, this is fun. I like this. I never thought, I have a Bachelor of Science, and I never thought I was going to go into the food industry, but just through co-op, I got into the industry and I was like, wow, that's the most fun I've ever had in my life. Holy, this is something I can do for a living. And, working with my disease. And like I said, there's been a lot of ups and downs through my career with it, but I've made it my passion, my career, and understanding what I was getting into so I can navigate the field to love myself. And having self-love is so important for us to be able to be successful. So know what you're getting into, whether or not it's some of the webinars with CareerNOW. There are some great organizations like the Ontario Food Protection Association, the Ontario Bakery Association, that do a lot of discussions about the industry, what you could be getting into, which is really, really great. And also finding mentorship programs that can give you some exposure to know what you're getting into is really awesome. But if you can find that sweet spot where you can combine your passion with what you're capable of, and the most important thing is never giving up, no matter where you are. Do not give up. You can be successful. I think you can go so far, and it feels so rewarding. Like the fact that I can work every single day and that I can maintain a position like this with a lot of support from Embassy. I'm telling you, I go home at the end of the day and I feel good. I don't want to stop. So.
I really like how you differentiated between a career and a job, and that really comes through in your enthusiasm for what you're doing and how you don't want to stop at the end of the day. I think food and beverage manufacturing, there is so much opportunity for it to be a career, and if you're passionate about it, clearly it can be a rewarding experience. So yeah, great. Thank you for sharing that. I'm glad that I asked you to do that, even though it was not part of the script, the agenda.
I had enough time.
Yeah, it wasn't part of the original questions that I shared, but I think it's important. So, okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to briefly just sort of show everyone what it looks like in the job seeker profile in terms of some of the resources that are available to job seekers. It's not going to be comprehensive. I'm not going to go through everything. My focus is really going to be on showing you what those where to find and what those industry-specific trainings are like. Again, I would encourage everyone, or if you're an employment service provider, I'd encourage you to work with your job seekers to get accounts created so they can explore CareersNOW, explore the job seeker profile. There are a plethora, a whole lot of resources available to job seekers, and it's all free. So I'm just going to give you a very high level overview so we have a bit of time to answer the few questions that were put in the chat, and I do have them noted. I'm going to start with one question because it's related to what I'm about to do, which is why these questions are not going to be quite in order, at least from the beginning. Someone asked about if an individual signs up for CareersNOW, do they have access to the on-the-job job coaching? So I just want to clarify, the on-the-job job coaching is something that's offered by employment service providers like Community Living Mississauga, or you might see in the chat someone from Wood Green Employment Services. Those are community organizations that are their specific job is to support job seekers with finding employment. So, for Jerome in the chat, when you asked about those services, if you're looking for an organization to provide that kind of job coaching, you'll want to find some, an employment service provider in your community that can support you. Having said that, there is a job coaching resource through CareersNOW, and I'll show you how to get to it, and I'll explain sort of briefly what it is, but I need to share my screen first so you can see what I'm doing. No, I don't want to share two screens. I just want to share one screen. And let's see. Okay, so you should see the CareersNOW log into your account screen. Maybe one of our panelists, can you confirm that my screen is being shared, that you can see it? I can't actually see the panelists, so could one of you?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure. I don't want to leave the screen I'm on in case it stops sharing the screen. Okay, so this is not the landing page for CareersNOW. When you land on the CareersNOW page, however, there's this access resource buttons in the top right-hand corner. If you click job seekers and students, it's going to bring you to this page. The right side, you see the sign up here button. I've already created an account, so I'm going to log in. And once we get into the account, you'll be brought to this page. So it will give you an overview of, it doesn't like my password. That's interesting. Let's try that again. There we go. I swear I entered the correct password the first time. Maybe I left that screen up for too long. But once you log in, you'll be brought to this page. It'll give you an overview of some of the things related to food and beverage manufacturing, and then you'll see these two lovely people. So these are the CareersNOW job coaches. It's a different type of job coaching. So we have an Indigenous advancement coach. I'm not going to focus on that. I'm going to focus on the career coaching with the wonderful gentleman Lenny, whose smiling face you see there, and you can book appointments with them. And what Lenny will do is he will speak with you about sort of your experience, your skills, what you're looking for in food and beverage manufacturing. He can give you insights and information around, what food and beverage manufacturing looks like, how it might connect with your desires, your interests, your skills related to the field. He can give you ideas as to what you might need to do in order to prepare for the roles, what kind of roles might be a good fit for you. He can give you that kind of guidance and advice from someone who is very well versed in the field. And that's the kind of job coaching that you can access through CareersNOW. So that's different from the on-the-job coaching. The on-the-job coaching, like I said, is provided by employment service providers like Community Living Mississauga that support job seekers. This is more career coaching, advice, guidance, information in order to help you make decisions, determine what's a good fit for you, or what you might need to do to prepare for work in the field. So that's one of the free resources that is available. In addition, you do have access to a job board, right? So if you go browse jobs, it will bring you to the CareersNOW job board. It's going to play this. I'm going to stop. And once you scroll down a little bit, you see it's going to list a whole bunch of jobs. As you can see, there are lots of jobs available, and they're all of very different types, right? Morgan made this point that there are many different types of roles in the industry. So make sure you know what you're applying for and what connects or what matches with sort of your skill set and your interests. And then you can filter the jobs, right? So you can filter by category. You see a bunch of different categories here, and you can filter by location. And just something to note about these filters, you may not see, say, your city or your region in the list of filters. That doesn't mean that there are no food and beverage manufacturers in your region. So just as an example, right? Maybe you live in Hamilton and maybe you go filter by city and Hamilton isn't there. I know it's there right now, but let's pretend it isn't. If you don't see your city here, it may just mean that there are no open roles in your city right now that are posted on the job board. And that's why it's not showing up. So it's worth continuing to check, because maybe in a month or 2 months, there will be roles in your city being posted, and then your city will show up on the filter. Same thing goes with the filter by category. If there are jobs available in a category, it will show up in the filter. If there aren't currently jobs available, it won't. So keep checking back if you don't see what you're looking for. And then finally, I mentioned the training. So I'm going to go back to the job seeker page. Okay, so scrolling down, you've got all of this information. You've got career guidance. You've got companies and people, exciting reads. There's so much that you can access through this account. And I want to go to, actually I want to go back to, this is the easier way for me to do it. I want to go back to the landing page once you've logged into your account, because here you'll see free job ready skills training. And this is on the page that you land on once you've logged into your account. You can view all courses and start your training, which will bring you to this lovely page. There's a little intro video that gives you a quick 2-minute overview of the training. We won't watch that right now. And then you'll see a description of each of the courses and an idea of how long it might take to complete them. Maybe a little more time, maybe a little less time, depending on how you go through them and how you learn. There are a bunch of different topics. Some of them are specifically just employment in Canada related or general employability skills, right? You see introduction to emotional intelligence, working with others, that sort of thing. What I want to focus and draw your attention to is the industry specific trainings, right? So here you have good manufacturing processes, sanitation level 1, industrial workplace safety, allergens level 1. I mentioned lockout, tagout, basics of standard operating procedures, and so on and so forth. There are a variety of them. They're available in 4 different languages if you include English. So this gives you a little summary. And then if you want to get started, click Start Your Training. It's going to bring you to a page that is CareersNOW with Food and Processing Skills Canada related to the training. We've got a lovely message from our wonderful director, program director, Isabel Dopta. There you see her smiling face. And continuing to scroll down, there's that video again. And then here are your courses. The first one that's going to be opened is this group of courses on Workplace Essentials. I'm going to close that. And if you open the Food and Beverage Processing Basics drop down, then you'll see the courses that are specifically related to food and beverage manufacturing. And you can complete each of these. They are sector specific, created in partnership with Food Processing Skills Canada, so they're industry recognized. And as you complete them, you can add them to your digital wallet, so you'll have access to these credentials. They are something that you can put on your resume, and it will show any employers that you're applying to that you've done some training related to the field, that you have an understanding of the food and beverage manufacturing sector, and you're already somewhat familiar with each of these things. Right, so that's going to help you be more competitive as you apply for your roles. So that's the very quick overview of the CareersNOW profile for job seekers that I wanted to draw your attention to. I do see that there's more that has happened in the chat. While I catch up and make note of the additional questions that may be in there, I want to get to the questions that I've already taken down. So for the first one, this question isn't for anyone in particular, so any of the panelists that want to address it, but can you talk about how you deal with, and I guess this is more for Denningers or Embassy Ingredients, can you talk about how you deal with applicants that you want to hire that have limited work experience or limited references?
Yeah, I'll jump in. So it really depends. If somebody is willing to work, we do have entry-level roles. It depends what they're looking to apply to. But in the event that we identify that this may be a strong candidate and they could be successful at the role, but they're missing a few things, and we think that a little bit of development would go a long way before bringing them into the role, partnering them up with an employment service that provides that skill level or skill development goes a long way. So employment services in the community are more than willing to take candidates who are looking to upskill themselves, provide them with some knowledge and training that they may need to then enter into the role. So looking at community partners who may be able to provide you with that skill to be able to enter into the workforce if you're looking to get into a specific position itself.
Thank you, Morgan. I don't know if Priya or Gwyn Priya looks like she wants to add something.
Well, I was also going to say, just on top of what Morgan was saying, in terms of looking at those services within the community, is also to see if there's any networking events as well, or just any kind of mentorship that you might want to look into to kind of gain further information of where exactly you can go for other services as well. Because the more you talk to people and the more you understand some kind of avenues to go to in order to get those kinds of experiences, and simply talking with people will really be beneficial for them.
Yeah, and then adding to that, sorry, just one more point. One really great thing that we look out for, especially for entry-level positions, is volunteer. And volunteer is free to everybody. So Ontario Food Protection Associations, they have volunteers. You can help out at their events. You can get involved in the industry in different ways. And if you have minimal experience, that's going to help you shine if you're a volunteer with these organizations. So see where you can get involved in the community.
I think that's good advice. I know that when I finished school, before I got into the field I was trying to go into, I continued to volunteer at places where I had done placements in order to get that experience, because I didn't have any work experience, and it certainly helped. I don't know if it helped in terms of my competitiveness with getting a job, although I did find a job, but it certainly helped me in terms of being prepared for some of the things that I might see or experience in the workplace. So yeah, any way that you can get that, familiarity is helpful. So hopefully that answered your question, Bernadette. I know you have another question, but there was a one that dropped into the chat earlier from Fatima. So again, this is sort of general. Anyone who wants to jump in to answer it can. I work with Wood Green Employment Services, and we're seeing a large volume of clients with backgrounds in different areas of food preparation from different countries. They do not have the greatest language skills, which is why they cannot complete the requisite certifications, but they're good with conversational English. So what are the best ways for them to integrate into food and beverage manufacturing? Sort of overlaps with the last question, but a little more specific. And I'm wondering, I'm going to put somebody on the spot here. I'm wondering, Morgan, just based on the question, because Denningers, you have the storefronts as well, right? So speaking about conversational English as opposed to maybe having enough English to complete the certifications, you may have some more relevant insights around jobs that are available in the field and how to get into them that may not require the same level of certification.
Yeah, absolutely. It depends what the role is. Obviously, if there is a mandatory requirement to go into a certain position, we would have to look at how that person would be able to achieve that certification before going into it. But there are different areas and different jobs that don't necessarily have prerequisites that you can enter in without a language requirement. So for example, somebody who's good at conversational English, we may put them into our stores because they can talk with customers, they can utilize the skills that they have. However, if on the other hand, they don't speak English, we may remove them from a customer facing role or something that requires conversation. So for example, we have packaging roles, and for our packaging roles, you don't need to be able to hold a conversation with somebody. So looking at what skills are required, what communication levels of each position are, and then matching that person based off of that. We have in the past had a translator come to an interview with someone who didn't speak fluent English, and she's a wonderful employee. We ended up hiring her, but the translator was able to help her during the interview process to make sure that she was able to communicate well between the interviewer and the rest of the team. So it's really just assessing what jobs they're applying to, what level of communication skills are required for that job, and then matching them appropriately.
Thank you very much for that, Morgan. That's sort of precisely what I was looking for. So we have one more question. I know we're at noon, but there's only one more that was dropped into the chat, so I think we can answer it. And again, this is it says this is a sector-wide question, but can the panelists talk about the most common non-management positions in the food and beverage manufacturing sector in Ontario?
That's a tough one to answer because there's lots of positions in the food and beverage industry that are not management positions. So looking at ours specifically, we have butchers, we have sausage makers, we have cooks, we have a wide variety of positions that are not management level. There's supervisors, there's managers, but outside of that, we do have a large variety of positions that are not management. There's entry-level positions, there's area for progression within non-management roles. So there is a lot available. It just depends on what industry, what specific industry within the food and beverage industry you want to go into.
And I can jump in. So if you're looking at the world of quality, which is something that I can talk about, most people do start quality in QC, so quality control. So as a QC technician, typically our QC technicians are our entry-level role. And then from there, you know, a lot of the natural evolution within the career would be going to food safety or regulatory. And then at that point, getting into management. So looking into the QC testing roles, the lab testing roles are always a really great place to start. And it's where I started and where a lot of people I know started.
So thank you for that. And I think I'm thinking back to, I think it was Morgan who was talking about some of the different manufacturers, right? If you're in a meat environment versus if you're in a candy packaging environment versus if you're in a beverage manufacturing environment, the roles are going to look very different. So yeah, there's certainly a lot of different non-management roles available. I mean, I'm thinking of even actually a restaurant I was speaking to that has a production facility, and they're looking specifically for people to do deboning. Right, that's one role. It's just deboning. Somebody to do that all day. So many different roles. So yeah, thank you for highlighting that. I see that Bernadette says it's been a very helpful session. So I'm assuming you answered her questions. So I think that's it. We don't have any other questions in the chat. I certainly hope that everybody who is here enjoyed the opportunity to gather this information. Thank you, Morgan, Kristen, Gwyn, Priya, for joining us. Your insights are invaluable, and hopefully we'll see more job seekers registering with CareersNOW. Like I said, I would encourage everyone who's been on the webinar here today to create your free profile, access the free resources, and for the employment service providers on the webinar, it's a great resource for your job seekers. So of course, I'd encourage you to get any of them who are interested in the food and beverage manufacturing industry, or who just want to learn more about it, to create their profile and explore the industry through CareersNOW. So thank you, everybody. Have a great remainder of the day, and enjoy your Halloween. Hopefully it's full of tricks and treats. And that is all.
Thank you, everyone.